I was like, actually, some of these books are actually quite interesting. And I was like, okay, this year I'm going to try, I think it was 40 books in my first year.
Like, how are you pushing yourself? How are you actually driving yourself to get into the gym or stick to that diet?
But I think it's just about forming habits. And it's embarrassing when you lose. You've got two choices. You either give it up forever and don't ever compete again.
So Lewis, what's going on? So before you jumped on, I spoke to about 4 or 5 people from home and I was like, I've got Lewis jumping on the pod. What do you guys remember about Lewis? Yeah. And some of them were like, he's leg. Some of them were like, yeah, he was like gallon sugar from the ends. It's like, yeah, he's like the pingest guy at school. I was like, all right, guys, all right.
I don't want to know who you talked to, Jude, who said that, you know.
She definitely maintained that reputation quite well. And then obviously I think more recently everyone's obviously mentioned the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stuff, and obviously, mate, we're all so proud of you, seeing you just fucking smash it and watching the videos of you just continuously getting medals as well. So well done on that front, and we'll definitely touch on that as well. But I think the other areas of it is obviously within your career, how you've developed with that and what you've been doing. And mate, also from me, from what I've learned from you, from a self-development perspective and a health perspective as well, is quite incredible. So I really want us to touch on those areas, because I definitely feel that there's a lot that other people can learn from it. And I mean, from what you were saying to me as well, is that how they all kind of interlink with each other. And I always fucking struggle with balance, mate. Like that's still something.
Join the club, mate. Join the club.
Continuously struggle with balance, continuously struggle with discipline. So no, I really want to just touch on those areas. But I think let's dive into talking about the BJJ side first, because like, how many medals are you on now? How's it all going?
So I've probably done about 30. I've been touching 40 competitions, and I've probably got about 30. I think I got 33 medals out of those that I've placed on the podium. So I'm pretty happy with that. And the mistakes that I made were some silly ones, some nutrition-based ones and stuff, but you can't win all the time, right? So as cringe as it sounds, it does teach you just sort of suck it up and just keep on moving, even when you sort of absolutely get smashed. And it's embarrassing, right? When you lose in a competition, there are hundreds of people watching you on those mats. And then it's sort of just you out there, you're fighting another man, which is primal in itself. Your adrenaline is pumping. And it's embarrassing when you lose. But ultimately, you've got two choices. You either give it up forever and don't ever compete again, or you get back out there and show whoever it is, yourself, your family, your friends, that actually you're better than that, and you can come back and smash on one the next time, sort of thing. So I think that's what keeps you going. When you win, you almost have this imposter syndrome where you feel like, oh, actually, I didn't deserve that gold, so I've got to go and do another competition to prove that I'm constantly working at the gold level. And then when you lose, you're like, okay, I've got to prove that I'm not crap at this sport, and I've got to go and get a gold. So whether you win or lose, you go straight back to that mode of, I've got to prove myself again to sort of get back, which you could argue whether that's healthy or not, I don't know. But it keeps you sort of on the grind. It sort of keeps you sort of training hard, and it gives you a focus. I probably wouldn't train jiu-jitsu if I didn't compete, to be honest with you. It's that adrenaline.
How did you even get into it?
How did I get into it? So I've dabbled in MMA for a number of years, since I was about 21, really. I went to Titan Fighter in Enfield or Edmonton. And then I was doing a lot of stand-up, I was doing some Muay Thai, some boxing. That's how I sort of started. And then I sort of dropped in and out of it as I started sort of bodybuilding and lifting weights and stuff. Because doing the two simultaneously is so hard. I'm having to eat like 4,000, 5,000 calories a day, which is just impossible most days when you're working 12 hours a day anyway. And then I sort of slowly found my way in jiu-jitsu over the years, stopped and started. And then COVID happened. I had my first competition booked. COVID happened. And then that all got cancelled. Then I just sort of sat at home for a few years and lifted some weights while COVID was sort of going on. And I came out of COVID and had just this sort of new lease for jiu-jitsu. I went to 10th Planet. The coach there, Jamie Scott, absolutely amazing. The atmosphere is amazing. Everyone's like a big family there. It's so good. So if you're ever thinking about starting jiu-jitsu, 10th Planet in London is your absolute place to go. And then it's just sort of carried away. I've done my first competition, I won that, and I just got the absolute bug for it, like the adrenaline, the competition. I'm super competitive anyway, which again probably needs some work. But yeah, so that's essentially how I got into it, and I've not sort of stopped since. There's not been anything longer than probably like 4 or 5 days where I've not trained, to be honest with you, unless I've been on holiday or something. And even then I'll train if I'm in Bali, Thailand, whatever.
Yeah, no, sick. And how are you like fitting it in with the work life?
With some difficulty, G, I will admit that, especially when you have like really busy periods. Like this Q1 is really busy for me. So it is a bit of a struggle, and obviously it's opportunity cost, right? So some things got to give. Sometimes that's your sanity, sometimes that is a night watching Netflix. But I think the ultimate point of this is that at the end of this process, I'm going to look back and I'm going to think, look what I've achieved. Whereas if I was sitting at home, if I wasn't doing anything, I'll be like, well, I've not achieved anything. I've achieved, and probably there's some balance to be found there. I think I probably need to do a little bit more sitting still, watching Netflix, and just chilling and eating rubbish. But at the same time, I'm happy with the level that I do, because it's about between 10 and 15 hours a week of jiu-jitsu and gym all combined, plus working upwards of 10, 12 hours of most days, sort of in my day job. So it is tough, but ultimately the juice is worth the squeeze for me.
Yes. Are you training before work or after work?
After work. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. Tuesdays and Thursdays are sort of 7 till 9:30, so they're 2.5 hours each. And then on Saturday morning, I'll be there from 9 until about between 12 and 1 o'clock. So between 3 and 4 hours on a Saturday. And that's when they have the open mat. So everyone from any gym in London or nationally can come down to 10th Planet, and they can just, if it's free, you can just come down and just basically just spar with anyone you want. That's sort of how an open mat works. So people just come down, we'll just test you and just see what you're made of, sort of thing. So it's sort of trying to emulate competition as closely as possible is the idea of an open mat. So people come down who you don't know. And because it's no gi, so I don't do where you wear I'm going to call it's called a gi, but you can call it pajamas, whatever you want to call it. We don't do that at 10th Planet. It's all no gi. So you literally just wear like a rash guard, which is like a tight fitting top. And so you have no idea how good anyone is, because they've not got their belt on, because it's no gi. So you don't wear a belt in no gi. So you could be a spar with someone and they could be a 2-week in white belt, or they could be a 10-year black belt. You just don't know until you start fighting with them, which is a really strange concept to get your head round, actually. And you don't often ask. You just sort of go, "What's your name? How you doing?" And you just sort of get at it, really, which is interesting. So you could be having the easiest round of your life, or you could be having the toughest round of your life, and the only way to find out is to just start by sparring, essentially.
Mate, that is so interesting. So that's obviously a lot of structure then, right? So if you're working and then obviously doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the same time, and then like, when do you actually get any time to chill and relax, or like, how do you even motivate yourself to even stick to this routine?
So my normal chill times really are Saturday after I finish jiu-jitsu or the open mat. I've got nothing else for the rest of the world, energy wise. After my open mat, I'm sort of finished. So from like Saturday afternoon all the way through till Sunday night, this sort of my protected time, and that's when I just sit still. I'll do whatever I want to do. I'll eat whatever I want. I'll go out to eat. I'll go out drinking if I'm in a drinking period. And finding that balance is tough. Like some days, like I'll get like on a Thursday, so for example, is probably the worst part, because sort of you've gone all the way through the week, and you just sort of had no days off. You've been to the gym, you've been to jiu-jitsu, you've been working your ass off. You've had like a nightmare week at work. Something's gone drastically wrong. You've had to fix, which means you've had to again work until 10 o'clock. But again, coming back to sort of that phrase, which is my favourite phrase, just the juice is worth the squeeze for me. And whenever I look at a particular thing or activity or whatever it is, I just ask myself, is the juice going to be worth the squeeze for this? Is the end result going to be worth the effort that I'm putting in? And if the answer is yes, some people that's going to be no. Some people want to have more work-life balance. Some people want to have less work-life balance. There are many people out there that work much harder than me and do much more sort of activity physically than I do. But you just have to ask yourself, I guess, is it going to be worth it, sort of putting yourself through this? Like my knees are shut up, my hips, I got tendonitis in my hip. Like jiu-jitsu ruins you physically. Like when you're fighting, you're scrapping for your life almost. Like it's really primal, because you're fighting against another guy. You don't want to tap out. You don't want another man to choke you out. You know, I've been training for consistently almost about 2.5 years. And when another guy comes in and absolutely destroys you, it's sort of like, I've done everything I can in my power to stop you from killing me, and you've still been able to put me in a position where I need to tap and admit that if you put that lock on any harder, it's going to break my knee, my leg, my ankle, my choke me out or whatever it is.
Yeah. So that's like a strong level of like concentration then as well, because you have to constantly be watching the guy to make sure that he doesn't come at you, or to make sure that you're controlling the situation throughout. So like, mate, I've struggled with concentration just generally, mate, right? Even watching EastEnders, I've been distracted about 10 times, right? So it's like, how do you manage to keep yourself so focused? Or is it just a case of, if I lose focus, I'm going to fucking die? So it's like...
Is that because it's so primal, your adrenaline is pumping, you know this person's trying to attack you, you have no choice. You've got no choice to think about where your next bill is coming from, or you've got no choice to think about sort of what you need to do, what's your next on your to-do list sort of thing. The job in front of you is that someone is trying to sort of choke you out, and you need to do whatever you can to make sure that they don't. And you need 100% concentration. Your body just gives it to you, because if you think about, like, I guess, evolutionarily, that is what we're designed to do. We're designed to fight, hence the fight or flight, etc. Your adrenaline starts pumping, your blood rushes to your muscles, it moves away from things like your digestive system, etc. And your body gives you the energy that it needs. That is why the adrenaline sort of system is there. And so your body just dials in. It just defends. It's sort of, your body goes into a state of sort of like it just executes what it knows. So what you drill in the gym when you're sort of training, it was over time, you'll sort of see your body starting to do the things that you're learning, and you'll just automatically go for a guillotine, or you might automatically go for like an arm bar, or you automatically go for a heel hook, or whatever it is that you've been drilling, your body will automatically shoot there. And then all of a sudden you sort of get to this place where you're like, shit, I've just sort of like tapped out someone who's actually quite good. And you're like, actually, that means I'm quite good. And then you're like, oh, actually, you start sort of submitting more and more people. Then you submit your first blue belt, and then you submit your first purple belt, and then you submit a brown belt. And all of a sudden you're like, I'm submitting people who have been training for upwards of 10 years. So actually, like, the proof is there. Like, you can imposter syndrome as much as you want, but if you're tapping out people that are high level guys that have been training for a long time, actually, and that in itself is a motivator, because you're like, shit, if I can do this, and I can tap out people that have been training for 15 years, and then that means I can then go and get a gold and then it sort of motivates itself. And sort of, I've sort of derailed your original question, but sort of it's just an interesting point.
Yeah, no, mate. So like, obviously you're saying it to me now, and I want to fucking get in there, right? But no, in my luck, man, I'm probably going to get a rock up and get handled instantly. So for someone that does want to get involved, like, what could they do to prepare? Because I know rocking up to the gym could be quite like daunting, or like even quite embarrassing. So what can someone do to prepare? Or is it just a case of just rocking up and learning the hard way?
A little bit of both, I would say. The first time you ever spar with someone, even if it's sort of softly, you're going to get smashed. That is how it's designed, because you need to feel what it's like to be absolutely crushed. And that means another person who's probably going to be bigger than you, sitting on top of you, trying to put you in an arm bar or in a position that you are massively uncomfortable with. Like, you're going to get smothered. There's going to be times where you feel like you can't breathe, times where you feel like it's claustrophobic. It's super claustrophobic, and you have to get comfortable with that. To your point earlier when we were talking, G, around doing like a one-to-one session is really good. I was thinking about this the other day. So when you walk into a gym, especially, well, I'll take my gym, 10 Planet London, for example, the sort of the design is red and black, which is super sort of it's aggressive. When you walk in there, it's aggressive. It's a place where people are training to fight. It's a place where people are training to sort of damage each other, essentially. So it can be quite daunting, no matter how used to sort of find whatever you are. If it's your first time walking into a gym like that, you have to sort of, I guess, not mentally prepare yourself, but you have to just get comfortable with that. And it's just because the walls are painted red doesn't mean that everyone is horrible and everyone's going to try and kill you. It's not like that at all. I would definitely say that some of the people that I met at Jiu-Jitsu are some of the nicest people in the world, because they know how to kill you on a mat. They have no need to prove themselves. There's no bullies. There's hardly any bullies. If you join a great gym, the culture is one where that none of that is ever tolerated. It's like anywhere, right? In any group, large group of people, by law of averages, you're going to have people that aren't very nice. But that is the same in a gym, in a workplace, whatever. And it's absolutely no bother to ignore them. But that gets stamped out quickly if you have the right coach, which we definitely do. But to your point, I would probably do a one-to-one session. You can get some of them for like 30 quid, 25 quid. And I would just say, just be comfortable being uncomfortable for a while. It is as simple as that. Just get used to the positions and just try and get a basic understanding, and just suck for a while. You have to sit in that place where you're just in the mud and rubbish And then all of a sudden you'll get your first submission and you will feel fucking fantastic. And I guarantee that is the point at which you'll be like, I'm doing this for the rest of my life. I'm doing this for the rest of my life. And that's it. At one point it clicks and it will just take you. It will just take you.
Yeah, nice. Like consistent growth and consistent trajectory of just constantly going, feeding off of the wins, I guess, right?
100%. And not competing is not for everyone. It isn't. Like, it's a stressful day. Like the adrenaline pumps. Like you feel lightheaded. It's horrible. You have to get your nutrition right. Like if you lose, it feels horrendous because it's primal, right? That another person has come up against you. You've done everything you could, and they've beaten you. Under the rule set. And but you just got to get back on the bandwagon and just go again. Just go again. If the other option is you quit and that you never realize what you were capable of.
Yeah, man. And I think that goes back to like discipline again, right? From what you're saying, because you know that there could be times and where you're not going to obviously win, but you're still pushing yourself to go to the gym every day, obviously having a very structured life to be able to do that. So like, make it a real example, right? It is Thursday, right? You could either get dragged out to go on the piss on Thursday night in the city, or like you could just sit at home, chill and watch Netflix or do whatever. Like how are you pushing yourself? How are you actually driving yourself to get into the gym or stick to that diet and whatnot?
I think a lot of it is sort of inbuilt now, but I think it's just about forming habits. I think it is, and just having to have that discipline. Like sometimes, it's so hard. Like especially when you work in insurance, that you're surrounded by all these pubs where everyone's going on a Thursday night. Everyone at work is going up. We're going down to here. Do you want to come? And I'm like, no, I've got training. So it does sort of come at a sacrifice sometimes of things like networks, whether that be formal or informal. But you have to sort of make the choice, and that's where the sort of balance piece comes in. And ultimately, it just always comes back to, do I think that, is this decision, it's delayed gratification is what it is. It's like, it's short-term losses for long-term wins. I know by me going out tonight on this do, it's going to be so much fun. It's going to be wicked. And don't get me wrong, like me and you, G, we've had some pretty crazy nights together. There's a time and a place for everything, right? But like, I feel that should be not always the exception, but there should be just about balance, really. And sometimes you just have to say no. If I know that going training tonight is going to help me at the weekend achieve that goal, and that is something that I'm going to be so buzzing for if I get. And if I go out tonight, I'm going to end up with a wicked night, but also I'm also going to have a raging hangover tomorrow. I'm going to feel unproductive. At work, I'm going to feel shit. And then Saturday, I'm not going to go training because of it. I'm then going to order a takeaway. And then it all sort of spirals into one. And when you exactly that, it all fits. If you sort of choose the fitness journey, you then eat well, you train well, you sort of recover well, you feel great. You choose the sort of hangover journey. And for me, the night out isn't always worth. Sometimes it is. I can't need a blowout now and again. Don't get me wrong, but like on the day to day, the fitness one. And as we get older, like we're not getting any younger, right? So like I can't handle these hangovers no more. Gee, I'm a horrible person to be around. Like it's horrendous.
No, mate, I'm completely with you, mate. 2-day hangovers are not the one anymore, man. I just feel like shit completely. But again, mate, I completely agree with you. I think taking those steps forward to not, I wouldn't say sacrifice, but really it's not a sacrifice because you enjoy going to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? You still get your satisfaction and drive, whatever. You can get on the piss anytime. Like it's pubs and bars and clubs and your mates are always going to be there, right? But just on that, mate, because you're not drinking as much and going out as much and doing whatever, have you seen it impacts other areas of your life, like in terms of work and all that kind of stuff?
100%. And I think, to be honest with you, the biggest impact I've seen drinking less over probably the last like 2-3 years since I've been really competing is probably my mental health the most. Like just having the clarity on a Monday. If I drink on a Saturday, on a Monday morning, my head's foggy as hell. I'm getting up at like 10 to 9 just before I need to log onto the laptop. Like, I generally don't feel great with myself. Then you end up getting antsy with people that you love, care about, etc. So if you've got like a partner, then you end up just being a shitter partner because you're more aggressive. You have arguments that come off the back of drinking, etc., and all the stuff that comes with that. So it just doesn't serve you. And like I've made a ton of mistakes that have come off the back of some really heavy drinking nights out and stuff, which I massively regret. And I think that's also a driver for like not wanting to do it as much anymore, to be honest with you. And if I look back now, and I've done all of that, and I've had like my 20s and coming into my 30s, drinking tons, doing all of that stuff, massively fun. I've got some amazing memories of all my best pals, and we're still gonna do all that, but just there's less frequency. And I think ultimately I've got a much better balance now in this sort of phase of life. Like my career is absolutely shooting off. Like the jiu-jitsu's coming on, and it all does just sort of like compound effect. And you see the effects you see the results of the work that you're putting in. Like I talk about this delayed gratification. Now I'm starting to see, you see the goals, you see the promotions, you see all of that stuff. And you start to see actually the effect of me not going out and getting smashed or hammered is that all this stuff comes at a much faster rate. You may get there still, but at a much slower rate is my opinion anyway. Like, not that I'm not judging or drinking, anything like that, but for me at this phase of my life, like, I just can't fucking handle it anymore. It's as simple as that, really. I'm sitting there talking like the Buddha, to be honest with you, and like don't get me wrong, like on my birthday, I'm going to be going out, and I'm going to be out until about 6 a.m. To be honest with you, I'm going to be having a big party.
No, definitely, mate, and that's what it is. Again, it's just having that balance and seeing that all come together. And it's discipline, it's balance, it's progression, it's growth, it's delayed gratification, and all these amazing things that you're saying. And I think, like, from a work perspective, again, I've seen you massively regrow from that, and there's so many tips, and I love the blogs that you're writing about that as well. And all the advice you're giving to people. So, I mean, let's touch on that, because that's been really helpful for me, and I've shared that with others as well. So, like, do you want to just give us a bit of background as to like what you're doing and some of the things that you've been talking about in these posts?
Yeah, of course. So, a very, very brief overview of my career so far. So I didn't have a fucking clue what I wanted to do when I left school. And I started as a business admin apprentice in a college over down in Chapel Heath. And I was there for about 4 or 5 years, moved into various roles, ended up in recruitment, which is sort of where I got the first sort of glimpse of what human resources was, because recruitment's a big part of that. Then I moved into sort of business management in schools. Then I moved into my first HR business partner role for a private healthcare organisation. And now I'm currently working for Lloyd's of London Insurance Syndicate as a senior HR business partner. And I guess not many people are probably going to know what that is. And so I essentially look after anything people related. So I do a lot of stuff around remuneration, share schemes, compensation based stuff. I do a lot of recruitment strategy. What else? A lot of learning development strategy as well. So all about how to best engage people to want to develop themselves, to create a culture of learning, to ensure that our population or our staff cohort have got the skills to be able to do their jobs most effectively. I do lots of culture work as well. So how to build the right culture and environment to foster growth, foster productivity, foster, I guess, the right environment for people to do their best work, essentially. And obviously that then impacts the bottom line in a number of ways. If you've got happy workers, you've got people that are more productive, which means you're making more money, essentially. So there's a business rationale to a lot of stuff that we do, or all the stuff that we do. Otherwise I wouldn't have a job, essentially. So that's sort of like a brief overview of my career so far.
From all of those topics and areas that you've mentioned, what has been like the most common that people need support and advice with? Is it like, or is it just like the typical one of like, yeah, we just want more money, so how do we get that? It's
certainly the recruitment piece. Like as we sort of move to a more technology focused world, people's skills are becoming increasingly rare. So they do come at a premium, which is obviously a fantastic time for me to be in my career. But it's the recruitment piece that is so important, because if you get your hiring right, if you get the right people in, which off the back of COVID, there's been a lot of work done now around culture. There's been lots of stuff with the BLM movement was a big thing that sort of progressed culture, how people are being treated. The Me Too movement also sort of highlighted a lot of stuff around culture in the workplace. And if you get your people right, you can have a fantastic organisation that are all going to work towards sort of a common cause. And then that branches sort of into the volunteering stuff I do, sort of teaching people how to get into jobs, how to impress the most in sort of recruitment and interviews, how to sharpen up their CVs to make sure that they're selling themselves as best as they can. Because the CV is that, right? It's a job ad. It's a job ad for you. If you give someone your CV, you're basically saying, this is my advertisement that you need to read. This is all my sort of key highlights of everything that I've done in my career life so far. This is why you should hire me, essentially. So it's an important document. It's a really important document. It's a difference between you getting that job or you getting your foot in the door, which is the hardest bit, and you not getting any job interviews. So if I can sort of give some of that back, which is why I do some of that volunteering that we've spoken about before, it's just sharing some of that knowledge, essentially. It's knowledge I've got up here anyway, so I may as well share it as much as I can.
So how could somebody tart up their CV in like the best way then?
So there's a few bits. So CVs are a really interesting thing because a lot of people disagree on the best ways to do them. And I guess ultimately there's no right way. One of the main things that I say to people when they're sorting their CV out is focus on how you have improved a process or a company or a business. Have you increased their bottom line by doing X, Y, or Z? Have you made a process more efficient by doing X, Y, or Z? So don't just write a list of things that you've done, and don't just write a list of behaviors that you are, because anyone can do that. Write about if someone's reading that statement, if I'm reading that, if I'm hiring for a job, I'm going to be looking at, if I hire you, how are you going to make my systems better? How are you going to impact my organization for the better? I don't want to hire someone who just wants to come in and sort of just sit there and just do an okay job. So for some roles that might be appropriate, but if you want to get that job, you need to be showing that employer how you're going to be making their life easier, how you're going to be putting in things in place that is going to make their life a lot easier, essentially. So that's probably the first thing I would do. Focus on your achievements in the current role or roles that you've had before. I always like to start with a little blog. So there's 2-3 sentences. That's it. Real highlight. Probably what's your highest qualification if you've got a professional or qualification or something similar. Write down another sentence to say what you're looking to achieve or what you're looking to sort of get out of your next role. And also why. It's sort of a little human element to all of the stuff that comes after the CV. So your qualifications, all of that stuff. And I actually would say that if you have personal interests that are generally interesting, I would definitely add those on as well. I know there's a bit of a contentious topic putting your sort of personal interests on a CV, but I just think it paints a bit of a human character because we're not hiring robots, right? We are hiring humans as part of this. And I think if you can give someone a bit of a background, so if you love to read, put that on there and put your favorite book on there. It's just another conversation starter too, and it makes things a little easier. If you do get to interview, your interviewer might be saying, I've noticed on your CV that your favorite book is Sapiens, for example, or talk to me about that. And it's just a little icebreaker that might be the thing that just is the difference between you getting that job.
No, for sure. And any other things as well that could help somebody get a job, or even for an employer, right? Because some of the things that I've dealt with is like labor turnover. I've even got mates that do this, right? Where they go for an interview and they go through this whole process to then get offered something to then go back to their company and be like, yeah, can you give me a bump up because I've just been offered X, Y, Z, right? But it's just wasted my time because I've gone through the whole process of fucking interviewing you. So it's like, so I think from both sides, any advice for employers and any other advice for the employee?
Yeah, do you know what? The recruitment's a fickle game because a lot of people do that. They go out to get interviews just to get their manager to bump up their salary for them to be counter offered, and that is just the nature of recruitment sometimes. There's a lot of data that says that if your company counter offers you, if you threaten to leave, then you're just going to leave within a year anyway. For the majority of people, so being counter offered is actually a pretty counterintuitive because you're just going to leave soon anyway.
Just on that, like, I would just get pissed off because I would just be like, well, the fact that you've even gone to the extremes of going to apply for something, you should have just come to me first and just been like, hey, look, I'm really not comfortable with what's going on. We could sit about it and talk about it. But you've gone around this whole long route of doing it, which has just annoyed me even more. So I don't know, personally speaking, I just feel honesty is the best policy in my eyes.
100%. I completely agree with you. I think you should always have a conversation first with your manager. And I would advise anyone to do this. Have a conversation first with your manager to say, look, I'll probably cover here actually, it's quite relevant how to sort of bump up your salary or try and get a new salary. So the best way to go about that is to speak to your manager. Actually, first, before that, do your research. If there are job roles out there that are equivalent to what you're doing, but the salaries are, say, 10K higher, gather that research, gather that over a period of time. If there are lots of roles out there that are being paid much more for the same work, then go into your manager with clear, rational evidence of why you should be paid more. Is this the easiest way to increase your salary? It really, really is, because otherwise they're going to start thinking, oh, that person's going to leave. If you're terrible at your job, they're probably going to go, you can go and find that job then if they don't want to keep you. But if they really value, if you're adding value to the company, then they're going to turn around and go, actually, you've got a fair point there. I'm probably not paying you fair market value for the job that you're doing, and therefore you do have a case for me to push that up. And I would definitely advise doing that before you go to another company and say, I'm going to go for an interview just to get my my current salary hiked up. It's not the integrity level there is probably not the highest for me.
So what about if you've maxed out? So let's say for a particular role, this person, the max they can earn is 60K, but for whatever reason they want to get a mortgage, they've just had a kid, or they want to get an extension done, or for whatever reason they want to get to 80 or 100K. How would you advise them to progress further? Like, because they'll need to now, from what I know, you'd probably need to get a promotion or improve your skills somewhat to then go into a bigger role. So what would you recommend for someone that just generally wants to take a jump forward?
For sure. So one of the best things that I recommend to people is to message people. LinkedIn is just fantastic. And there are certain industries or jobs that don't use LinkedIn very much, but especially speaking from my experience in the financial service industry and also healthcare before that, everyone's on sort of LinkedIn now. So I would say speak to the people that are doing the job that you want. So for example, I'm a senior HR business partner. If I want a HR director role, I would message HR directors both in the market and also in other industries as well. And I would just say, look, I'm starting to sort of think about my next career move into being a HR director. Is there any sort of tips, tricks that you can sort of offer me? But at worst case scenario, they ignore you, right? You've got absolutely nothing to lose by doing this. Worst case scenario, they ignore you. At best case scenario, they go, oh, actually, we've got a position opening soon. Would you like to apply for the role? It's great that you sort of shown initiative. You could come forward. You clearly want this if you're going to people and you're asking for tips and tricks. And that could be the difference between sort of a life-changing promotion or not, especially when you get into your senior roles and you start talking about some big money. Just by asking and messaging, it doesn't have to be anyone you know, just random people that you know are in the jobs. I'll probably Google some competitors that are in your market and just message the people that are doing your job or the one above it. Ask them for some tips or tricks. You might find a mentorship out of it. So they might actually take you on and meet you for a coffee every month or every quarter or every half a year. It's an hour out of their time. They feel like they're being asked someone. They feel like the subject expert because it's sort of boosting their ego. So they've got a sort of an egotistical reason to respond, or even an altruistic one. They might just want to give back to someone that actually wants to progress themselves. But that's a really good trick and tip that I liked to recommend to people when I speak to some people about this.
Yeah, I think we forget sometimes that people are actually nice, right? People do actually want to help people out. And I think sometimes it's that courage to sometimes, reach out to someone or even put your thoughts forward. But everyone's been in the same position, right? These people that are, MDs or whatever, they were at one point in your shoes and they probably did the same, I wouldn't say tricks, but use the same tools to then move forward in life. But you just have to keep learning and get yourself on the radar, get yourself out there to then keep moving forward.
People have their own insecurities, right? So even if you're sort of like a global head or the CEO, you still have insecurity, you still get imposter syndrome. So even people that are really senior have their own sort of worries about whether they should be in that role or not. And the higher you get, the sort of more strong that becomes because you're more exposed. So even by you reaching out to someone and saying, oh, look, I've seen that you're in this position. This is amazing. Obviously, there's a certain level of sort of brown nosing that you want to do here. But like the fact that you're asking someone for this help means that they have skills and they think, actually, I'm in a really good position here. I can probably help this person out. They clearly want this. And like I said, the worst case scenario, you get ignored and you move on to the next one. But the best case scenario, you have like 6 people you've messaged, all of them turn around and go, oh, actually, I'll meet you for a coffee, or actually, we've got a role opening, or actually, you can help us on this project work and you can get some sort of like some side hustle stuff going, can start a consultancy, whatever. You just have to sort of like push yourself into those opportunities, I guess.
Yeah. And put in the work, right? If you want a bit more, you're going to have to give a bit more, and the more you give, the more you're going to get back. And I think that's where like kind of self-development comes in quite perfectly, because like in life, if you do want to progress, you got to do a course, you got to read the books, you got to speak to the right people, but be able to put your points across in the right way as well. So, and I know you've done a lot of that. Maybe like 50 books a year, is it?
Yeah, between 40 and 60. Yeah, depending on how busy work is in that particular year. I've been doing that since 2020. Yeah,
it's incredible. So yeah, like give me some more on that. Like, why is self-development important to you? Is it because you just want to keep getting the money in, or is it from a personal perspective, or is it because you want to structure your life, or the way you're perceived, or the way you put your points across? Like, for what reasons are you doing it?
Oh, gee, it's for all of those reasons and more, I think. Do you know what it was? I just challenged myself to it one year. And actually, just to wind back, so when I was working at Signet, I was covering the east of England. So I had 5 different hospitals that I would HR business partner for. 6 actually, and I was sort of fed up of listening to music during the drives because each drive was like an hour there, an hour back. I just got bored of listening to music all the time, so I found Audible, and I was like, actually, some of these books are actually quite interesting. And I was like, okay, this year I'm going to try. I think it was 40 books in my first year, which was just under 4 for a month. Actually, I found it really easy, and actually really enjoyed the process of listening to these books. There's and I listen to a range of stuff. It's all non-fiction. Whether it's self-development, I love history as well. I'm a top nerd, so like I read anything. I read Stephen Hawking's book, like just random stuff that like Audible suggests to you. I'll read, and like it's had such an impact on my life, G. I cannot tell you. There are times where there's a random thing that I've read and it's got me. I say so. One example that I use is where I was reading a book, I think by Simon Sinek, and it was talking about technology and innovation. And in the book, there was a chapter around this new technology that could basically stop hurricanes because it dissipated the warm water, which helps to generate hurricanes out at sea. And then in my job, and now when I was interviewing for this role now, I was talking, as part of the interview, I was talking to one of our energy underwriters. So they do a lot of offshore energy, that sort of stuff. And I ended up talking to him about this sort of new technology, which he knew loads about anyway, because obviously he's in the industry, he has to know about this stuff because it's part of his job. I ended up having this really good conversation in my interview about this random piece of tech that could stop hurricanes. And I always think like if I'd not read that book, I never would have been able to connect with him on that level, which to this day I believe helped me get that job because he would have given positive feedback about me. So it's such a random example, but it's an example of where you sort of create your own luck. You read that book and it's sort of had a direct impact. And not that I'm doing all of this reading to sort of help me in my career. I just find it really interesting anyway.
Yeah. So just on that then, so like, I guess you didn't wake up one day and be like, yeah, I want to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I want to, do self-development. I want to grow in all these areas of your life. Like, how did it kind of come together? And, if I wanted to change my life in any way, how would you kind of say that I can put a structure forward to do that?
It's just small habits, right? No one sort of wakes up and goes, I want to do 40 books or I want to do 12, 15 hours of jiu-jitsu on top of a 12-hour working day. It's not like not everyone wants to do that, which I completely get. Like even I don't want to do it sometimes, to be honest. But it's just about starting really small. Read one book a year. Like just tell yourself, I want to read one book a year. And just find a book that you love too. So like if you love non-fiction, read some non-fiction. If there's a topic that interests you, it could be anything. It could be knitting. It could be like whatever, like art and design, whatever. Just read a book on it. I think that in this world, I think we need to say, when we're asked about things, I think generally we need to say, actually, I don't know enough about that topic, so I'm not going to comment. I think everyone's got their opinions on everything, whether that be Israel, Palestine, whatever is going on in the world at the moment, when actually no one really knows bugger all about it, to be honest with you. And like some of these things are so complex and people have these super tough opinions on these things when they don't do their research. I just think just learn more about the world that you live in, and then you'll probably have a better life. And as you read these things, you pick up these really miniature tools and techniques that some of these self-development books help you with. And some of that's around relationships, like some of that's around business, some of that's around personal development, some of that's around just like managing your emotions better, because Lord knows like a lot of us, including myself, haven't got the best sort of hold on their emotions. So whatever you feel like you need help with in your life, just read a book on it, because worst case scenario, you spent 6 hours of your time reading a book about something that's going to help you, rather than 6 hours watching a series that hasn't served you well. You're still the same person after at the end of Breaking Bad, but you're probably not going to be after reading the book on something that you need help with.
Well, you've learned how to cook meth now, which you might make some money from, but I don't recommend.
There you go. It pays the bills, G. It pays the bills.
But no, mate. Just other than reading books, is there anything else that you do to help yourself grow?
Podcasts. I love a podcast, man, and like everyone who writes books these days.
Any particular podcast that you like?
TED Talks. I'm a massive TED Talks fan. Like there's just stuff on everything. And there's health, there's nutrition, there's science, there's history, there's everything. I love a TED Talk. Some of them are like 3 minutes, some of them are like 25 minutes. They're just really interesting. Hearing from like the people that are living and breathing this stuff, I just find it really, really. So I love a podcast. There are absolutely tons I can absolutely recommend. There's so many I listen to, and I love history podcasts too. That's probably the main one, just because I think that the truth is actually madder than fiction. In the wise words of Dave. So I just love listening about that stuff, because like, why read non-fiction when there are so many crazy things that have happened in history, like from World War II all the way back to whatever.
So do you put this on, when you listen to this, on your way to work or while you're sitting at work, banging out work? Like, how are you fitting it into your day?
All the time. If I'm not doing something that requires concentration, I'll have my earphones in. So if I'm making dinner, earphones in. Like, this is probably quite extreme, to be fair. But like I get up in the morning, if I'm commuting, I put my earphones in literally about 10 minutes after I get out of bed, and I'll just put something on that interests me, you know. Where I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I've got it on, and like sometimes I love my music as well. So like I find a balance between that. I love my tunes, but most of the time it's a podcast or a book, because like when I target myself to read 60 a year, like you have to just have it in all the time, sort of thing. You just get into this routine of just always reading, really.
So like, Lewis, a lot of this stuff requires a lot of energy, right? Like for me, I'll be fucking knackered after doing this for about a month. So like, I know you're big on nutrition as well. So are there any particular supplements or any particular dietary constraints or anything that you put into your diet that has helped you just maintain energy levels so you can keep doing this all the time?
No, so I'm on a bit of I'm in a bit of a rabbit hole at the moment about processed food. I read Ultra Processed People by, I think it's called Chris Van Tolken, I think his name is. And I read that actually whilst I was in Bali, and it just blew my mind a little bit, to be honest with you. I've never been a fan of massively processed food. I love my chocolate. That's my one vice. Like, I'm a chocolate demon. If you leave it around, it's getting eaten. Geez, so don't leave it around me. I read that book, and like there's just so many links to like obesity, even in like these low calorie sweeteners like aspartame, sulfame K, even in all of this stuff, it's all linked to terrible health outcomes. I'm pretty convinced after reading that book. And I've read a few other books, one called Dark Matter, which is all about the gut microbiome, around the impact that some of this stuff has on our health. And it's not even just food either. It's like the chemical products we use to clean, the stuff we use to wash our clothes, like the soaps and the gels that we use, all of the stuff with a ton of chemicals in. And I just try to keep life as simple as possible. Eat whole foods where I can. Don't get me wrong. Love a Burger King, smash a McDonald's, like KFC, get in me. I'll protect my weekends for like crap food, but like Monday to Friday, I just feel like that's just majority, isn't it? It's sort of like 80-20, 80% I keep on my sort of straight and narrow, and I just eat whole foods. I don't really do many supplements anymore. I take joint support because I'm an old man now, and I take glucosamine, turmeric, ginger, and chondroitin as well for my joints, and I just take a protein powder. You
don't take anything for like just for concentration or for energy? Do you drink coffee and stuff, right? I imagine.
Yeah. So I have one coffee a day, because what I don't want to do is get hooked on it as well, and I get heart palpitations sometimes, which just get the shit out of me. So I don't drink too much coffee because they make them a lot worse. But I do love a coffee, to be fair, like a nice black coffee, a nice strong coffee. And it just sort of gives me a bit of a turbocharge when I really need it. I normally save it for when I'm absolutely shattered. So it's like the end of the week, sort of getting me through. It's like the final thing to sort of pick me up. But nothing really else for energy. I've sort of played around with things like ashwagandha and a few sort of bits like shilajit, a few bits like that, but nothing that sort of like rocked my world, to be honest with you. I just think it's like sleep and eating whole foods. Keep it simple. Man, there's nothing else to it, you know. There's nothing else to it, and you just feel better for it afterwards. Again, the mental health connection. Like if you're eating plants, natural food, I eat a lot of chicken, so I could probably cut down on my meat, to be fair, for the environment and for my cholesterol. But other than that, yeah, I just try to. And then chocolate's my vice, so I have my one thing that I'll demolish at the end of a week.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned sleep. Like, as I mentioned to you before, I tend to struggle with sleep quite a bit, and I realised that obviously alcohol really impacts my sleep as well. If I have alcohol, sometimes I'll take a melatonin after a night out just to help me sleep. But then even after that, it will take me like a good 3-4 days just to get back into the rhythm of sleeping properly again. And even if it's a few beers, even if it's not even that much, it still impacts me quite a lot. And sleep really. So what do you do to improve your sleep?
So I played around with tons of stuff. So I sort of said I don't take many supplements, but I used to take ZMA, which is zinc and magnesium essentially. And I also played around with CBD for a while. So I was taking those, and then I was doing some reading, and then they were talking about how glycine and inositol were also really good for sleep as well. But that in itself is like 5 supplements, and I just sort of felt like I was rattling before bed, taking all of that stuff, and I was just like, surely, like we weren't taking these supplements like 3,000 years ago, right? So I'm sure they were sleeping absolutely fine whilst they were saber-toothed tigers or whatever prancing around the kingdom. So I just put it all in the bin, to be honest. Some of them did really help. They really helped me get a good night's sleep. 5-HTP is also really, really useful. But I just felt like I was sort of like relying on supplements to get a decent night's sleep. So I'm in a phase at the moment where I've stopped all of my like nighttime supplementation. Not because I think they're bad or anything. They're all absolutely perfectly healthy. They're safe. CBD's got loads of stuff, a lot of evidence to support that it's great for joints as well. So it did also help me out for jiu-jitsu, because that is one thing that jiu-jitsu does do, is it absolutely makes every single joint creak. But yeah, so I played around with CBD. I really like that. And if I was probably going to recommend one, it would be zinc magnesium. So ZMA absolutely knocks you out. It makes your dreams really vivid. So I will put that health one on it. It gives you like the craziest dreams ever. You wake up and you feel like you've just like done something else other than ZMA or CBD. So yeah.
Yeah, no, awesome, man. No, I'll definitely take a note of those and all of them for myself, because I need to get my sleep sorted out ASAP. But mate, something else I wanted to just quickly touch on is, I know you've mentioned you've been doing some like volunteering work at a youth centre nearby where you work. So tell me a bit about that. What are you doing there, and how can others do the same?
So I volunteer with a couple of sort of organisations. So the first one is a pupil referral unit near me, and it's essentially a last chance saloon really for kids that have been kicked out of school for a variety of things. That could be fighting, it could be gang crime, knife crime, that sort of stuff. It all just depends on a case by case. So they do sort of like a reduced curriculum there. So that might be English and maths and a few other sort of other vocational skills. And it's all about really either getting them back into mainstream education, or potentially they stay there and they'll do this sort of reduced curriculum until such point that they're ready to go to college. And at that point, they'll be sort of preparing them for college and getting them ready for the world of work. They can go do apprenticeships and stuff like that. So I work with them just because a lot of what I know and what I do for my day job is around recruitment, it's about employability, it's about how to market yourself, how to sell yourself. So I go into there and I do those workshops for a range of kids from it's key stage 3 and 4, so years 9 and upwards. And essentially just go in there and talk to them about how they can sort of get back on track, how they can secure their first jobs. I do some very basic like budgeting and stuff like that with them, because we do a lot of that where I work now. And basically just trying to get them to sort of see that they're, just because they've been kicked out of mainstream school, that they've got a massive life ahead of them. They can absolutely turn it around. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If I can give back some knowledge that I've learned over the years, and I think if there's some of the stuff that's in my head now, if I knew this when I was sort of, I don't know, when I was 16, not that I've done badly for myself now, but if I knew some of that, I'd be in probably an even further place. You never know, do you? But it would have just been useful to know sort of some of that stuff. So yeah, that's the first organisation. And then there's a new organisation who I'm currently partnering with called the Soapbox in Islington, which is like another youth centre who sort of do similar work, but they're more geared towards towards STEM and music and the arts and things like that. So I'm going to be starting doing some mentoring there soon as well.
How did you get involved in it? Did you just send them an email, or was it there promoting it, or how did it come around?
So interestingly, the CIPD is sort of like the governing body which looks after HR professionals, and they basically put a call out to everyone that was a member of the CIPD, and I'm a charter member of the CIPD. So they basically said, we're looking for people that can come into schools and essentially just help out in whatever way you can, whether that be building sort of like the career strategy, whether that be helping out on employability stuff. So I had that sort of piqued my interest actually. I was like, I should probably give back a little bit more. So I had a sort of quick conversation with sort of one of their sort of advisor people. And I said, I used to work at I used to work at a pupil referral unit over in Hackney, which is where sort of like I saw some the other side of the coin really, and there were some really challenged kids there. And when you're in that environment, I think it does stick with you. It does stick with you. I won't go into sort of details, but you sort of see just how a lot of people I currently live in at the moment, and some of the people, the life circumstances that people find themselves in, especially young people, is no fault of their own. It's just they are a product of their environment. And I guess that sort of stayed with me really since I've been working in schools. My sort of school career history has always been in Hackney, so you do get to sort of become witness to certain situations and certain scenarios, etc., safeguarding, all of that good stuff. So if I can do my bit to sort of help kids out of some of those situations that they find themselves in, then it's a job well done, even if that is one kid, I guess. So that's sort of how I found myself in it, and then it just sort of grew from there. I said I wanted to go to a school that really, really needs help, the sort of the lower end of sort of educational attainment level. And there was that, we've got a pupil referral unit to put you into, because a lot of people go into sort of like really high achieving schools, and then actually I've got no value to add really, because they're all achieving well anyway, and all we're doing is just sort of like putting the polishing touches on a really established careers program, where actually that's where the help is really needed, is at that lower level.
Yeah, no, mate, that's awesome, mate. Well done for doing that as well. I think more of us should be doing that, because, like you said, it's unfortunate the circumstances that some people are in. And if you're able to just help someone with the knowledge that you've got, it's literally free. Like it's not costing you anything to share that knowledge at all. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be helping each other out, just generally in the society that we live in. So well done for doing that, mate.
100%. Like we're super lucky, right? We're sitting here, roofs over our head. We've got great jobs, got great things ahead of us, and we've achieved great things, And so many of our friends, like all my friends, super successful. Your friends, super successful. Everyone's doing like amazing, and you just have to stop and think for a minute. Actually, we're so privileged. Like we could whack on our heating and not think anything of it, but not everyone can do that. Like during COVID, you saw like there were nurses that were having to go to like they were on the breadline, and they were people that were saving our lives, and you just think like it's crazy. So, and it's at some points it's unfair, So I think that if we all get back a bit more, the world would be a much better place, to be honest.
Yeah, mate, look, I completely agree with you. I think, look, support each other as much as we can, because with the way things are at the moment, with energy prices, with inflation, with rates, etc., it's tough for people, man. And unfortunately, they're in situations that they're just in. And sometimes it can be difficult for them to grow in their business because of their business. Their business may not have the capacity or the space for them to do that. And they may not have the time to go and do self-development things and things like that, because they're looking after 4 or 5 kids, and they're a single mother or a single father, etc. So help us people out as much as you can, man. It's literally costs you nothing at all.
And that's it, isn't it? It costs nothing. It's just your time. Even if it's less than an hour, and you can do it from your house. Like when it's mentoring, I don't go physically there most of the time. I literally sit on and chat to a couple of young people like every month and ask them sort of how things going, help with their CVs or help with their uni applications, and that's it. You get off the call and you go back to your life, and you've got a really good feeling for helping someone from it, and sort of that's it really. It's not much to it.
Yeah, no. When I did some volunteering work with Crisis over Christmas, and it was super easy to sign up for it, and the amount that I learned from it as well, by speaking and spending time with homeless people, understanding how they got to getting into the situation that they got themselves into, and it broadens your knowledge as well on just people. And it really made me understand things a lot better. It also helps you with just like realism, like shit's real. Like we go to the pub or we go to work and we go to a lovely office. Like there's people out there that genuinely don't have that. Like they don't have phones to listen to music. Like I'm put on Spotify all the fucking time, right? But these people don't even have that. And it's just small things. It's just really wakes you up. So I think people should do it. It's super easy to sign up for this stuff, man. Like I say, it costs nothing.
100%. And it sounds so self-righteous, but like we're all only one bad day away from being in potentially the position that you could find yourself in, where you don't have anything. A lot of us are really lucky to have family that will support us either financially, emotionally, put a roof over our heads if we did ever get into trouble. But like so many people just don't have that, and you just when you do things like this, it makes you realize actually like my life is fucking fantastic. We're so used to like moaning about how shit our lives are. Oh, I didn't get whatever, I didn't get this job, whatever. But like actually, like 99% of the people we know, G, have got it pretty sweet. You know what I mean,
Mate, like Lewis, another thing is though, just on that, is you can lose that instantly as well. But that's why I think doing these things will just keep you in check, because you remember and you understand what's happening.
100%. And to be honest with you, G, that's why I do so much physical exercise, because like if I ever lost that, and I could lose it any day. Like if say for example, if I'm at a training session and I'm wrestling or doing a move, I get choked out and my neck gets cranked in the wrong way, my neck's broken. It happens to jiu-jitsu players all the time. There are guys that end up in wheelchairs because of something, whether they landed funny on their head or whatever. So at any moment, what I'm doing now, like, could get snatched away from me. And like I don't know what sort of position I would be in if that ever happened to me, you know. But that's why I make the most of it now, because like I'm not gonna have this. I'm not gonna be able to jump and run and fight for it forever. So like you gotta make the most of it whilst you're here, right?
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And then just on that, Lewis, like, what's your story? Like, what was your trigger in your life that made you want to do this and change your life in this way to grow?
I'm not quite, to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure, G. Like I think I get my competitive streak from my granddad for sure. So he used to race bikes. He used to cycle. And when I was a kid, as a task, I'm not sure how much fun this was when I was a kid, but we used to polish his medals, and he had a box full of them. He had a box full of medals, so I knew he was good. And I remember doing this when I was like maybe like 6-7 years old. So I think that was sort of my first glimpse into like the competitive side, and he would always sort of show us his bikes and all of that good stuff. I remember I got like super fond memories as a kid of just doing all of that with him. I'm not really sure where the rest of it sort of come from, really. I think when I started reading all of those books, you are a product of your environment, right? So when you start reading this, you take in all of this information, and subconsciously it starts to just take hold. Like if you sit all day watching negative news or reading about war and famine and everything, not saying you should hide from it, but if you make it your life, it's a pretty depressing sort of existence. And all you can do is what you can do as a human being to sort of help that, whether that may be. But like you sort of just become the product of the stuff that you inhale. So by me reading a lot of this self-development stuff and sort of like speaking to people like yourself, G, who are so positive, so motivated, you've got big plans for your life, and you just like sort of talk to it makes you realize that actually like you're a human too, G. So if you can do these things, why can't the next person, or why can't I, or why can't anyone else? You know, no one's got superpowers in this world, and Lord knows I don't for sure, which is why I got to work so hard, because I'm naturally not good at this stuff. So I've got to put in more hours than the average person to do that. But yeah, I'm not really sure where it sort of came from. I think I would definitely say that the book reading is probably the most influential thing, and that's probably the most like where I've seen the compound effect the most over the last sort of 3 years. And there are so many examples of where stuff that I've read has sort of been appropriate, or I can use those tools in life, whether that be relationships or in my work or whatever. And they've also sparked really good conversations. So like if I'm reading a book, like for me and you, when we was in Bali, we were having like that conversation over dinner around all the sort of self-development stuff, around whatever it was, whether that be monogamy or whatever. It's just interesting stuff. And it's not, we're not asking each other, oh, the weather's cool, isn't it? The weather's been bad lately. It's like we're actually having fruitful conversations, like rather than just talking about mundane crap that none of us even really care about, you know?
Yeah, no, and I think just on that as well, is you get to speak, by having that knowledge, you're able to speak to many different people. Like there's stuff that I've read that I can go and speak to like an 86-year-old African lady about history from Africa, right? Or you just learn more things to be able to speak to more people, and then you get to learn about more cultures. And then for me, it's eat different food because I'm now able to speak to different people. So it's like, it's just building that knowledge and just utilizing it in a way. And again, you don't only need to read books. You can listen to podcasts, you can watch stuff, but it's just things that will just add fruits into your life. And again, like, you don't need to do it every day. You can do it X amount of times in a week or whatnot, but just do it enough. But make sure you enjoy it, essentially, as well, right?
Actually, that is such a good point. Like the more you read, just the more not cultures, that's so cringe, but like you just do, you're able to just like have conversations with people, and and it just enables you to bond more. So you come away from that conversation thinking, I've had a really good conversation. They come away from that conversation feeling like they've had a great conversation. You stick in their mind, and you never know whether that person like you might spark up a conversation with is going to help you to get you to your next job, or it's going to help. And you shouldn't do this because you want something out of the conversation, but you just never know how these things can sometimes come back around and do the opposite of bite you. They actually push you in the next direction, or they give you the next idea that you were looking for, or whatever. And at the very minimum, it's just a fucking great conversation. You know, like you come away thinking, oh, they've given me something that I've never really thought about before. Like actually, maybe they've got there's some juice there.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. And like I said, it costs nothing to speak to each other, and that's how the pod came around. Was I was just meeting all these people, and they all had different stories. I was like, look, you guys need to share this story more with others because they'll learn from it as well. I've just got a bad habit of just randomly stopping people and talking to them, but it worked.
But you never know where it's going to take you, G. You never know where it's going to take you.
And I learned stuff from it, so I can't complain at all. Can't complain at all. But Lewis, I want to ask you, man. So obviously, a lot of things that I've learned from you is the biggest thing that I've learned from you. Sorry, is you've taught me how to fulfill life in loads of different areas. So not only in career, but in fitness, also in social aspects, also in nutrition and diet. So I'm able to now. Because before it was like, okay, work is this, and like, I just want to keep going with that, or gym is this, and I'll just be focused on one thing in that period of time. Whereas now I've kind of learned to have a better balance over things, and I think discipline was a big one, and self-regulation as well was another big one in that. But like, what's your kind of message to others? So.
I think just give back more than you take. I think it's as simple as that. You know, I think that we're also attuned to sort of taking, whether that be sort of wanting to sort of, I don't know, whatever, get your promotion, or expect things of our partner, or constantly just getting something from someone. But just by giving back a little bit more, you just feel better about yourself from a sort of almost like an egotistical point of view. And actually, the world just needs more kindness at the moment. There's so much shit going on, as you well know. What you do is turn the news on for 10 minutes and it's a murder or a war, or you've got Ukraine, you've got Palestine, you've got everything going on. And I just think if people give back more, it's just, that's mine. And also just find your balance, right? Everyone's got their own levels of what balance is like to them, and I recognize that I could probably achieve a little bit of a work-life balance, and the older I get, the more I do want to sit down and do absolutely nothing. But I'll have plenty of time to do that when I'm older. So you just got to find your balance, and that looks different for everyone. Yeah, just I think give back more, because I think the world needs to do a lot more volunteering, I think.
Yeah, no, man, lovely. Well, mate, it's been awesome, man. And again, I always learn so much from you. The juice is always worth the squeeze of you, mate.
I'm very glad to hear it, G. Likewise, always a pleasure.